Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and Avengers Infinity War comes out in, oh man, like 12 days. Holy crap, 12 days, the bookend of the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's crazy to me. That is just absolutely nuts to me that it's so close. But one of the interesting things about this movie, outside of the fact that it's going to be culminating roughly every loose thread that Kevin Feige has peppered throughout these past 18 films, is the story of Steve Rogers, Captain America, or as he's known now, Nomad. And it's interesting because the Russo brothers were brought in to do Captain America, a Winter Soldier. When, I'm not going to lie, when it was first announced that they were the ones that were doing it, I'm all like, you mean the two dumbasses from You, Me, and Dupree? That movie was bad. But then I saw the Russo brothers work on season 2 of Community, especially the paintball episode. And I'm like, oh, okay, they can bring it. That was actually a very well-directed episode. And then I saw Captain America Civil War. I'm sorry, Winter Soldier, back in April, 2014, almost 4 years ago now. And I was blown away. I was blown away. Watched it multiple times in the theater. I loved it. And then, of course, Civil War came out 2 years later, and it just, holy crap, they upped their game. I mean, like, I understand that Joss Whedon was the go-to guy for Marvel. That's what they wanted. They wanted him to handle all of this. I mean, if the Russo brothers hadn't come in and wowed everybody with Winter Soldier, and had Joss Whedon not had his falling out with Kevin Feige, Avengers Infinity War, and whatever Avengers in 4 is going to be, it would have been Joss Whedon. And after Justice League, yeah, I'm pretty glad. I'm pretty glad. I think we're getting a more mature version of Marvel, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Russo bros and them bringing this to the screen. But one of the interesting things that they talked about in a recent interview was how with Avengers 4, it's going to culminate the story of Steve Rogers that they've been telling since Winter Soldier. In fact, they say here, the storytelling is always paramount to everything we do. So we sit in a room with Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely for many, many months, and we lay the characters out on a wall. We write ideas beneath them about where we can take these characters, how we can combine them. We sort of slowly find our way through the film. It's all about the potency of the narrative, and it's servicing that, and it's figuring out how you take individual characters and blend them into the narrative, how to feed in the narrative, or how that narrative is feeding into them on a character level. And so obviously they're working on, how many, like 60 characters at this point in time that they're trying to tell these stories for. And this, of course, is coming across these two films. But in regards to Captain America specifically, they say here, that each movie might be very different, this being the 4 films, but there is a narrative, a through line that we can see starting Captain America the Winter Soldier and end in Avengers 4. And it says, for us, this was the challenge of telling the story, but also completing the personal journey that we started as storytellers in Winter Soldier. So the story that began in Winter Soldier and that ends in Avengers 4 there's a very personal arc there for us. I think you'll understand our point of view as filmmakers and who we are as people when you watch all 4 of these movies together. Now, what this tells me as just a fan of the MCU and a film fan in general, is that they very much are telling this personal story. And I think it is personal for them. I think the fact that they started off, again, coming off of You, Me, and Dupree and Community, a movie that was bad and a TV show that was very, culty and unique and everything else, very niche. And kind of being handed the keys to this very popular character. And it was a way that people were very kind of curious how it's going to play out. Then you watch it and you realize that what they've done is they've crafted a political thriller that is set in modern times, is set in the MCU, is set with Steve Rogers as the hero, but it feels like an old, like 1970s political thriller. And the way it played out was great. It never mind the fact that it tied in heavily with Edward Snowden and the leaks from the NSA and all the whistleblower stuff. And they had no way of knowing any of this was going to happen, but it synced up. It just really synced up. And I think that really added to the weight of the Winter Soldier and what they were trying to do with that movie. And I feel that this arc, essentially what they're trying to say here, this is, in my opinion, all about Steve and Bucky, right? Because that's kind of where it started. I mean, we see this in the first Avenger. They're together. They're in, I think it's in Queens. Flushing Queens at that World's Fair event or World's Trade event, whatever it is. I think World's Fair, right? And they're talking about the war, and Bucky's going off, and Steve feels left behind. And then, you know, everything happens, and then Bucky falls. Steve carries on the mission, as Bucky would want him to do. Then we discover that not only is Bucky alive, but he's been brainwashed by the Russians. He's now a super soldier with the vibranium arm, I think. And then we get to, you know, Civil War, and it's about trying to rebuild Bucky, trying to bring him home. The whole time has been about Steve trying to save his friend. And while he accomplished that in Civil War, their arc isn't done yet. And I think this is about friendship. I think this is about choosing to save. And I think what it's going to boil down to, and this is me speculating, because I have a feeling that Chris Evans is going to die in Captain America, in Avengers 4. I think he's going to die, but I think he's going to die saving Bucky. I think he is. I think he's going to die saving Bucky, because that, of course, is everything to him. That is everything to him. That is not only his best friend, but that's his brother, right? And that's his only remaining link to his original life. You know, 1940s Brooklyn. That was where, you know, or 1940s Queens. I think, or I forget which one it was from, but it doesn't really matter. But that's his callback. That's why he wants to save Bucky. That's why they did what they did at the end of Civil War by taking him to Wakanda. That's why. And I think that's why Steve goes to Wakanda. I think he goes to get Bucky, because I think his arc is all about that. That, or it could be something involving Natasha Romanoff. It could be that, or something involving perhaps S.H.I.E.L.D. It could, in fact, be something involving Agent Carter. We know that Haley Atwell was in Atlanta shooting parts of the film. We know that. We know that, her character passed away 2 years ago in Civil War. So we don't quite know where it's going to play in. Maybe a flashback, something like that. But those are the things. I'm thinking it's going to be Bucky related, because it's always come back to him. And I think the fact that, Captain America, Steve Rogers, is a heart. You know, he's a heart and soul of the team. He's just the heart. He'll always fight for the little guy. He'll always stand up to a bully. I think he'll die in order to protect his friend. That's what I think is going to happen. And if I'm right and that happens, I'm not going to lie, waterworks are going to flow. Just the waterworks are going to flow. I'm just going to cry and cry, because I love Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. I love these films. I love this character. I'm not ready to see it go yet. I'm so not ready. Thankfully, we have a whole other year. But there's going to be a hell of a cliffhanger at the end of Avengers Infinity War, guaranteed. But anyway, I want to know what you guys have to say about this. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? What do you think the arc is going to be for Steve Rogers? What do you think that final story element is going to be? What's going to put it in place? And how is he going to go out? Because we know that he's done. So these are things I'm curious to know. Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please thumbs up the video. Subscribe to the channel. Check back often for more content from me. In fact, if you want to see more content from me, you can do so right now.